So in 2020, we saw a surge of new trends because of TikTok. People were bored, people were roller skating, doing spooky dog sheet ghost trends.
Tears falling down at the party.
Rating random objects, dance trends, you name it. But the biggest underrated trend of all that I really have to harp on, that I feel like nobody's really even paid attention to, millennial lesbianism. Look, you might think this is a joke, but I'm dead ass. Like, I'm 100% serious. So if you're a part of the community, then you know what's up. But if you're not, then this has to be like a whole new world for you that I want to educate you on. So in 2020, women in their 20s and 30s in long-term committed relationships with men started leaving their boyfriends and husbands to be with other women.
So you were married for how long?
10 years, a third of my life.
And at what point in your marriage did you realize that you were a lesbian?
I realized I was gay when I was married to a man.
When I started realizing that I was queer.
But why? Did TikTok just convert them? Were all the women millennials just bored during 2020? I have a theory. So let's get into it. So when the pandemic first hit, we were all stuck in our homes. We all had to work from home and find new hobbies and do different things to keep ourselves entertained. And at the time, a lot of us did have the TikTok app that we downloaded as a joke that we all very quickly became addicted to. So it's 2023, and as most of us know, TikTok is a very highly intelligent platform. It essentially learns things about you and curates content specifically on your wants and needs, even if you didn't even know that you liked or wanted to see this type of content. Well, millennials have always been used to social media, but they've never been accustomed to this type of social media. Myself being on the cusp of Gen Z and millennials, I will say we a little bit subconsciously, but I am Gen Z, okay? So back then, millennials were the first early adopters of platforms like MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, and things like that. And these platforms were not like what TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook Reels are like right now. Back then, if you were interested in a topic, you had to literally go and follow somebody who was speaking about that content. Unless you were looking for it, you wouldn't find it, and you had to curate it yourself. You had to follow these people. So in the beginning, millennials might not have been set on niche or narrow focused topics that were either taboo or just unknown. They just stuck to what they like and what they already knew that they liked, so that's who they followed. And that's what they would see. But now we have platforms that test you, that to see, do you like this type of content? And if you do, we'll show you more of it, which essentially broadens what we're viewing and makes it easier to find things that you didn't even know that you liked. Before, just for reference, you could be scrolling on Twitter or Facebook and you could come across, just by chance, a video of somebody making boots, leather boots. You could do a deep dive on it at the time. You could go and start researching, leather boots on the platform itself, whether it be like, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. But unless you followed those accounts, you likely would never see another post so niche about leather boot making. But now, with a platform like TikTok, if you see somebody with a leather boot making video, if you watch it for a certain amount of time, if you like it or if you comment on it, it likely would show up again. So that short-lived little innocent look into boot making has now become a reoccurring theme on your For You page because TikTok is learning about you. So if you took the time to even watch a video like that, TikTok would assume that you like it, and then they consider showing you other things that you might also be interested in as well. So let's say it suggests after you watched a leather boot making video that you might be interested in a bracelet making video because it's crafty, they're both crafts. But let's say you're not interested in it and you just scroll on. Well, TikTok makes a note of that and then it looks to something else that might be interesting of it. So let's say, for instance, cowboy hats. You like leather boot making, so maybe this person likes cowboy hats. So let's say you see the cowboy hat video, you like it, you interact with it, you watch it all the way through, and then TikTok realizes that this person likes leather boot making, also cowboy hats. Maybe they're more interested in Western idealism or Southern idealism, or maybe even Republican politics. So then TikTok starts showing you little snippets of Republican like propaganda, little things like gun laws and anti-vaxxing and things like that. And then that's the content that you continue to watch, like, and engage in. So then you keep being fed more and more of this type of content. Well, now TikTok has an idea of who you are and what you'd be interested in so that you'll stay on the platform and continue scrolling. So within a short amount of time, the app has learned enough about you to basically create a personality profile of just content that you're going to spend hours watching, which essentially shapes your personality simultaneously because you're learning new content. So let's go in a different direction. Speaking on women, millennial women who were once in a long-form committed relationship with a man, switching and becoming full-on lesbians. Why does this happen, and what does it have to do with TikTok? So let's say the exact same person from the example that we used before, who started out interacting with a video of leather boot making, and they've gone all the way to right-wing conservative republicanism. That's what their content looks like. So let's just say within this world, this woman, we're gonna say she's a woman, let's say on this page, a video shows up of a woman talking about how she finds another woman attractive and that she thinks she's just the most attractive thing in the world. But of course, she's straight and she would never leave anybody to be with a woman. She's definitely straight. She just thinks she's attractive. It's a funny joke and this person resonates with it, so they like the content. So after that, this same person keeps scrolling. They see the regular Republican conservative type of content, but then a video of a really gorgeous woman chopping wood shows up, and the person who's on this page likes it. They look at the comments and it's just a bunch of women in there saying, oh my gosh, she is so beautiful. Like, I'm not gay, but that type of energy. So far this video might sound like anti-gay. It might sound like I'm just trying to push some sort of crazy conspiracy theory, but I'm trying to bring it all together and set a scene and give you a perspective of what I'm thinking. So just for some context, in 2020, TikTok massively exploded. Before that, we were just getting kind of like dumb content of old Viners making relatable content.
Whoa, you good, man?
But it was never specifically niche. When the pandemic hit, normal people were stuck at home. Normal people were bored. And so normal people started creating content. And with that being said, TikTok is such a democratized platform that anybody can become a star. So you have moms talking about their children with autism and other moms sharing with that, or teachers giving advice on how to help their students when doing classes online. So there's so many different personalities, and now there's useful content, and people are relating with people like themselves rather than mega stars or YouTubers. So the world had become significantly smaller. The pandemic basically forced people to stop and take a break and just give them the opportunity to think about their lives and to think about themselves. We didn't used to do this. People were so busy running around nonstop working, doing this and going that nobody was really taking the time to actually look at their lives. But the pandemic was a time of like massive reflection for people. My theory is that women who grew up thinking that they were straight now have the opportunity to slow down, look at their lives, and decide, hang on a second, whoa, wait, am I actually straight? And here's why. Many women who were stuck at home realized that, okay, well now I'm here with my kids, I'm here with my husband. My husband doesn't listen to me, and also my husband doesn't talk to me. And also, he doesn't pay attention to me when I'm talking to him. He doesn't help clean up the house. He doesn't take care of my kids. And they're like, do I actually like my husband?
My husband does this really fun thing where he doesn't listen to me the first 5 times I ask him to do something. Then when I finally lose it on him, he looks at me and says, "Why are you getting so mad?"
My husband doesn't assist me with housework. Instead, he just leaves his belongings all over the place.
And these are probably things that they dealt with before multiple times, but they didn't even realize it until the pandemic hit, was because they were able to slow down and actually look at their lives. Simultaneously, these TikTok videos were showing up catered specifically to these women in these scenarios, so they were able to think a little bit more about it. They were actually prompted to think about it because they were being exposed to this type of content. So then you might ask, how did the women who were in couples, how did lesbians even end up on TikTok when some ended up in married, committed, long-term relationships? TikTok helped popularize a term called compulsory heteronormity, or for short, comphet. Comphet is the phenomenon that basically, when we were raised in a society, we're told that one day we're gonna grow up and meet somebody of the opposite gender, get married to them, have children, and live happily ever after. And for some people who are heterosexual, this is completely fine. But not everyone is heterosexual, and society has raised us to believe that we all are. So many of us do question if we're actually straight, but not all of us actually look into it or try to find that self-discovery. A lot of people move towards compulsory heterosexual comphet and don't even look into it. I personally only dated men until I was 18 because I didn't even consider that I could be anything else. I didn't even think that any of the thoughts or the ways that I acted around women had anything to do with me maybe being attracted to them. I just assumed the only way I could go about it is that I was heterosexual. So millennials and Gen Z in general were raised very differently. But one major difference is the amount of homophobia that's instilled in millennials. Millennials grew up in a time where it was very normal to call people the F slur or to even call people queer, which back in the day was a negative connotation, and we've reclaimed the term today. But if you were in high school as a millennial, it was never cool or okay to come out as gay. Likely you'd get bullied or beat up or maybe even killed. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen today, but back then, it did not fly. Schools, especially for millennials, were not a safe space to come out as LGBT or queer. So a lot of people kept their mouths closed. And why would you want to be associated with something like that? So why even consider that you might be queer? And if you're a part of that community, you can go to rosegoldco.shop to check out all things pride, whether it's gender affirming, rainbow flags, and things like that. Use the code ALICECAN, do that for 20% off. Millennials grew up in a very insensitive and very homophobic driven society. There was a lot of prejudice, ableism, and it was barely widely accepted. We didn't really have cancel culture, so things like the N-word being thrown around, the F-slur being sold around, making fun of people with disabilities was very normal. And yes, people got upset, but there wasn't a lot of backlash for people who did these types of things. So this was basically the culture of high school for millennials, which is a very, very imperative turning point in your sexuality when you're growing up. When you're in high school, that's when you first start dating. And to start dating in an environment where it is not okay to be gay makes it a lot more difficult to even realize that you might be gay. So now, in their late 20s, 30s, and early 40s, millennials are being introduced to a more kinder society. And yes, because they're younger, they're changing with the new generations. And they're also a bit more kinder. They're not quite like Gen Z, but it's getting there. This generation in general is now being exposed to a society that's more open to people being themselves as they are, which gives them the option to actually explore themselves as they are rather than just being who they're told to be. So through platforms like TikTok, millennial women are also learning more about different sexualities and understanding that it's okay to actually look into themselves and adopt these if they actually align with who they are. There's so many different examples of millennial women who basically just realized that they were queer after all these years because of TikTok, and they basically very amicably parted with their long-term male partner, and they're still friends with them, and it's okay. But the reason why it happened is because they just didn't realize, and it took all of that self-discovery, the year of self-discovery. You know, I think it's ironic because everybody say 2020 vision, and then they're like, oh crap, a pandemic. I think they said it a little too realistically, because during 2020, we literally had to look at ourselves because we had nothing else to do. Everybody was changing their hair, making content about themselves, watching an extreme amount of content, and we were all just learning different things. And so that's why I believe that 2020 was the year of the millennial lesbian. Speaking of millennial lesbians, if you want this badass rainbow hoodie, you can go to rosegoldco.shop and click the link down below and you can get 20% off right now. I did a lot of thought and research into this video, so if you enjoyed it, please like and please give it a subscribe.